Everyone, and welcome to Small Business Roundtable. This is the marketing portion of our roundtable series. I hope you all enjoyed these so far. I know I have. I think they've been very valuable in this very uncertain times. I want to thank David and Anna for all the hard work that they have done, and the committee who puts these together. We have really thought that the people who have been part of these have been getting a lot of feedback that they really enjoy them, and there's some things that you can take away right away. I'm actually in Las Vegas today. I'm actually at a live event. Yes, a live event in Las Vegas. So that's going to be an experience. I'd like to introduce two marketing experts that are going to help us through the minefield of COVID-19 and marketing. So I'm going to introduce our moderator, Michelle Metter, who is partner and owner of Fast Forward Events Production. She creates B2B and B2C events and experience, including SOMCOM, a bi-coastal 3-day educational conference for beverage professionals, and the San Diego Bay Wine and Food Festival, which I expect an invite, Michelle, for that. My son lives out there now.
Of course.
Is one of the country's largest consumer wine events, and now SomGo, the on-demand streaming service, provided global wine education to professionals and enthusiasts worldwide. Michelle's also a CISO board member and part of the Small Business SIG, and I'd love to hand it over to Michelle.
Thanks, Phil. It's exciting to have an opportunity to be here and talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is really the discussion and dialogue about engaging with our communities and the communities that we serve. We are going to be having a discussion today with Liz Irving. Liz, thank you so much for being here. Liz is the Executive Vice President and Head of Marketing, Technology, and Customer Experience for Clarion Events. As many of you know, with the Small Business SIG, oftentimes we look to and ask some of our larger producer partners to lend insights as to ways in which they navigate the world of production with the larger scale in which they produce. And so I think the insights that Liz will provide here today will be very valuable for us as smaller producers. In her capacity, Liz oversees the strategic direction and integration of the marketing and technology functions for North America. She is also responsible for virtual product strategy development, which is something we are all intensely embedded in right now. And she partners with Clarion's portfolio directors to identify growth opportunities to enhance their existing events and develop new digital offerings. Liz, thank you for agreeing to spend some of your morning with us.
Great, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
So just a couple of housekeeping items before I jump into questions. This is a meeting. It is intended to be interactive. So it's a small group today, so I want everyone to feel very comfortable with asking questions as we go. We only have an hour, so we're going to try to get through a lot. I'm going to ask some questions of Liz. If you have a follow-up question, you can raise your hand, and we should all be Zoom pros at this point, but for a primer, you can click on participants at the bottom of your screen. And when you do that, you'll have the opportunity to raise your hand. Hopefully I'll see you, in which case I'll call on you and you can just unmute yourself and jump in. If I'm not acknowledging you, just go ahead and pop it into the chat, and myself or Phil will notice it and we'll bring you into the discussion. So let's just kind of keep it, keep it moving that way, so everyone has the opportunity to, learn from Liz, and we can all do some leadership thought sharing with each other. So let me just jump right in. Liz and I spoke the other day, and one of the things that we talked about was when we look back, when the pandemic hit and affected us all, and we started to realize the extent that COVID was going to have on our businesses. our communication strategies may have looked the same in terms of the dialogue we were having with our customers. It may have looked a little bit different. So Liz, I'd like you just to kind of walk back a little bit for us and talk to us about what that time period was like for you, and what was the strategy that you took at Clarion to start to talk to your customers, and how did you deploy that across all the multiple events?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that we really always focus on, pandemic or not, is do we have our pulse on the customer? And it all started for us by saying, let's have conversations. Let's not have conversation only about the business. Let's just see how people are doing, what they're feeling, what they need. And from those conversations, we started to understand, like, where can we go and how do we help industries and our customers grow and heal through this? Because we knew it was going to be a tough time. And the more we spoke to people, the needs were changing. We were doing check-ins at one point in March. By June, July, needs had changed. Business had further evolved or further gotten into more challenging times. So we took what we were hearing across the business and said, okay, how do we help support? And we did it in a couple of simple ways, I think. We started to say, we hear there's a lot of need for resource. So a lot of our customers are actually small business owners. So how could we gather for them and become a singular place where they could find the information they needed for their business? So we did outreach, we did connections. We talked to a lot of other association partners, other technology providers, and said, here's what we're hearing. How can we come together to further support the customer and the need? It was all about the talking, and then we slowed our communications down to match the pace of what the customers were asking and what the customers needed at the time.
And did you find too, so in our particular space, the events and the industries that we focus on are predominantly food and beverage, and in high concentration on beer, wine, and spirits. So for us, one of the things that we found was that when the pandemic hit, it didn't just affect us as event producers, it affected our industry deeply, with so many people, their businesses shutting down and having an inability to operate, with a lot of wine professionals out of work. Did you find that you needed to shift your strategy based on the industry that you were talking to or servicing? And was there a different way that you approached that when the industry was different?
Yeah, for sure. So we cover, we have 10 different industries we cover today. So we're in restaurant also. So I think we are finding a lot with some of those folks that their business needs right at the moment were changing and they weren't able to operate. So we turned to social. We said, okay, let's communicate more broadly. We also use our website in a whole different way. So we position it to say, okay, we know we can't have live shows. Here's what we have for you. And the communications we are sending out, we're driving people back to that point of access. In our other markets, we work in a first responder market. Those guys were on the front lines. So we knew we not only had to balance resource and community messages, but also make sure there was a message of compassion and to say, we're in there with you. We appreciate what you're doing. We see what's happening. And we would share articles and more conversations that was more community versus just let's talk about shows, because we knew that was the furthest thing from our customers' minds at the time.
Yeah, and that actually kind of leads into the next question that I have, is around this idea and the sense of community that we all strive for, in having a true partnership with the industry that we serve. From the initial shock of COVID and the pandemic and everyone trying to figure out, what reality really is, to now, how has your strategy maybe shifted to keep your community engaged?
Yeah, and I think it's different, honestly, Michelle, in every market we serve. So I think every community has a different need. So I'm going to go back to, it starts with, are we talking to customers? And I see Joel on the call, and he'll know Kelly on our team that runs the enthusiast group. She did this awesome plan where every single member of her team, regardless of position, had to make 5 to 10 customer calls a week to hear frontline from customers what they were saying. So we started to employ that throughout the business and say, everyone get in the call, get in a phone call, talk to a customer, hear what's going on. And from there, we took that information and said, what are the themes? And then how do we help provide a resource? How do we help move that to the next stage to give them what they're looking for now, but also keep thinking about where do we take that in the future? So we did that as a first step. So that's how we started to connect with the customers. And then that's where our ideas came from to pivot into digital and virtual because of the themes we were hearing. And we knew we couldn't recreate an entire event. And quite frankly, our customers didn't want an entire event online. They wanted pieces. And I'll bring up the FIRE group again. So they are a trusted resource for learning. We knew learning was going to be key. So how do we take that skill set that our team has and what they're known for and provide it in a much broader way and make it easy to access for the customers at the right time?
Yeah. For us, one of the things that we looked at really early on, and you know, I love this sense of, you know, it does not cost anything except for your time and your team's time to pick up the phone and do a check-in with your customer. And for us, when the pandemic hit, you know, and we saw literally the shockwave that rippled through the food and beverage industry and the restaurant industry, there was a rallying cry to really help the furloughed and out of work hospitality workers. And so one of the things that we were able to do is kind of regroup internally and look to see how we could partner with our industry stakeholders to create some funding opportunity by way of economic grants to, you know, to our industry and to our attendees who would normally pay a conference fee to come to our events, who now we knew were not going to be in the economic position to be able to do so. So for us, you know, we looked at how do we help triage the situation and be a good partner. And we knew that from there that, you know, that good things would come. So I think it's critically important, you know, to look at opportunities to stay connected with your community and understand what they need and then adjust accordingly rather than, you know, us being dogmatic about it.
And Michelle, I think the other thing with that piece was we also reached out to associations and even competitors because ultimately we're all in this together. And the more we all, you know, come forward with how do we help the industry, the better. And I think that's some of the first times I've seen so many people being willing to share, being willing to talk about what's working, what's not working, what are you doing, how do we get on the path together. And I think it's been tremendous. And we continue to do that piece as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'd like to think that it's industry agnostic too. You know, I think, you know, you're seeing it in so many different parallels that everyone really is in so many ways in the same situation. And so, you know, there is a spirit of wanting to help everyone on this road to recovery. So the next question that I have for you is kind of a two-part question. And, you know, as we look at what we're doing now, you know, I love looking at opportunities to engage with technology, of course, to change the way that we fundamentally run our businesses and how that can help with the engagement with our customers. So I think it would be interesting to know, you know, are there technologies that you were using before that perhaps you found a new use purpose for? And then the follow-up to that is, you know, in our new world, are there technologies that you found that are servicing a new need that maybe you hadn't been using?
Yeah, so the first one, the technologies we were using with past vendors and what are they doing different? You know, I gotta say, I think this has been one of the most amazing paths for technology. It's rapidly developing, it's helping us get to where we wanna go faster. And the technology partners have been tremendous to help continue to learn and iterate with us. So an example I'll give you is we work with Grip, who's a matchmaking software group, and we worked with them before the pandemic, and we did a lot of really good thinking. When we found we needed to switch to some of the new models, whether it was sourcing or online demos or what have you, we worked really close with them. But I think a key piece, and I always keep going back to this customer side, is we built customer advisory boards around each of our digital products to say, tell us what you think. How would you use it? How would you use it better? What's missing? How do we get there? So we actually shared all that with Grip. And along the way, we worked to say, how do we quickly develop the roadmap to make us better every time we do these things? So I think they've been a good partner for us. So we took what they did live and we took it all virtual. but we actually turned on some more bells and whistles to make the community feel more connected and integrate deeper with our customers for a single point of access. The second question was, what are the new technologies that we've introduced? And I know it sounds silly, but I never really used Zoom, and we never really used Zoom for video conferencing before now. And I think probably at times we're probably a little Zoom overwhelmed and fatigued, but I'll tell you, I see video being so key. So we've done a lot more with video, whether it's video meetings, whether it's live streaming. Our customers are feeling more comfortable with it. And I think it's a whole new way to connect when we're not able to be face-to-face. So video has been something very big for us and something I see continuing as we go forward. I think the other side of the technology piece is social. Social plays a much more interesting role because it not only can be out there as a vehicle to bring folks to us, but it's a listening tool. So you can start to understand what customers are talking about, what the sentiment is, without having to ask. And we've been finding a great way through social to drive audience acquisition. A lot of our new digital opportunities are driving double-digit growth of folks that we didn't even have in our database before. So for us, those platforms in combination with social have really been key.
Yeah, I think that actually raises a good point where our live events are very reliant on that individual who is willing to travel to, to our trade show or our conference. Our digital experiences are, they have no boundaries. So when you look at your audience acquisition, the strategy definitely changes because you're not looking at, drive distance. In some cases, if it's a regional conference, you're really looking quite broader. In our particular case, what we found is that we've launched really into a more global audience than we had originally had, and we've had explosive growth in terms of the people who have onboarded into our community and who are adopting our digital platform. Whether or not ultimately that translates when we go back to having a live experience to those people joining us, I don't know yet. Do you feel like you have a pulse on whether or not the growth that you're having may translate to your live events when they come back? Because for us, even though we're asking the questions, I don't know that we're getting the right data back on that yet.
Yeah, I think that's a question we have as well. I was participating in the Explore that did the research around what digital is looking like today, and one of the feedback pieces was folks are more willing to try a new show digitally before they'll go face to face. So I actually see it as a way to say, hey, you've tested with our brand, you had a good experience. How do we then put you into a nurture sequence and say you're a new audience type for us? And how do we help talk to you about the value our events provide face to face? But honestly, if they don't come face to face, we are still looking to say we're going to continue virtually because we know it's part of the whole community experience. So while I want them there, I think I can still provide them a lot of value outside and even make connections in a hybrid model too.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly, for us also, we had, we are a very small organization, and we had always toyed with looking at our live conference in adopting some opportunity for e-learning. But when I don't think that when we had mapped it from a strategic standpoint that we had considered really launching a subscription-based service, which is ultimately where we've migrated. And so when we talk about technology and we talk about customers, we've actually just, we really had to change some of our business model, and our e-learning platform is a true subscription-based platform now, where hopefully, over time we start to really see an aggregate of those of revenue coming in off of the subscription model. But for us, that video capability, like you talk about, Liz, really has been a game changer for us in us getting through this moment, and still staying relevant to our audience, still delivering really great education, which is what people would find by coming to our conference, keeping our brands and our sponsors and our typical exhibitors connected in now a way that our community needs.
And the video piece is interesting because it can be very high price, which is why I think a number of times we haven't gone down the road of heavy video before now. But what we're also finding is people are more forgiving with it. They like the personal nature of what it does. So I have shows that are in the fashion apparel business. So I have mom and pop retailers who are showcasing lines in their office to showcase a live demo of the new product lines coming out. And we had a conference that was showing fire trucks live. So I think it really runs the gamut, and I think people really like the idea to connect and see one another. And the other key piece with video is we've been doing a lot of conversations and demos, having it moderated, just like this, allowing for folks to ask questions and have the community come is a big piece of it.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because if you get onto the platform that we've launched, you really see from a production value everything from something that's very well produced with, you can tell, a professional videographer and lighting, and it has a high production value, all the way to a master sommelier with an iPhone and some cue cards. So it really does run the gamut. But all of I think that you're right. I think the audience can be very forgiving if it's done with an air of authenticity, and if the content really serves the purpose of providing value and education. So for us, again, I hover on that point for a minute, because as a small producer, the idea of video and the technology platforms that are out there, they can be pricey, but the one that we've kind of landed on, it is expensive for us, but less expensive than a lot of the other ones that we found. So, I'm kind of a zealot on that. I want to stick on, because I think we're okay on time. I want to stick on social for just a second, Liz, and talk about that for a minute, because I also think, again, when we talk about financials and we talk about budget, social strategies for organic reach, you don't have to put dollars or spend behind it. There are lots of things that can be done that create organic and creative content that can drive audience. And then, of course, there are lots of strategies with paid media that go behind it. Have you, and I'm sorry to throw this one at you because this isn't something we discussed, but has there been like an aha moment for you with social where you landed on something and you saw just really incredible results, or, anything with community that just particularly worked well for you that you think the group here might benefit from?
Yeah, I think there are two things actually. So when we've been doing a lot of the thought leadership conferences, at first we're like, oh, people are going to come. It's like a webinar. They're going to all show up. And what we found at first they were, and now they're busy. Now they're busy with work and life and everything else. So there's more on demand. So we've been sort of saying, it's okay if you didn't catch it live, but here are 5 snippets you missed, right? Here are the things you need to know. So creating that FOMO moment to repurpose bits of the content and then push them back to watch on demand has been really key for us. Because I think sometimes we think about, we do one type of an event or one type of an experience and then it stops. But the reality is we got so much out of that that we can now, play back different pieces through different social channels to push people back into watch engagement. The other thing we've been doing is we've developed some niche markets within some of our different channels. So on Fire Again, they have developed a small Facebook group for their fire chiefs, so their metro chiefs, the large New York City, LA departments. They've come together in a Facebook group, and they're having conversations there in a smaller community. So I think that's been working well. We've done it with some other cases with the vendor group. So it's sort of peer-to-peer, but we help be the voice or the facilitator behind it through the social strategy, and it allows our team to also be part of those conversations. So we're not pushing, we're sort of community pulling from the conversation.
Yeah. I think that one of the things too that we have found some interesting results with, and some pretty significant engagement with some of the live sessions that we've held, or the live webinars or discussions, we've actually been doing watch parties around them and publishing them in user groups. And again, we're in a space that has a lot of fandom. And so there are no shortage of Facebook groups for wine professionals or Facebook groups for wine enthusiasts that have thousands and thousands of members. So we're in kind of a unique space with that. But what we have been doing is, and it costs us nothing, you know, we do watch parties and we publish to one of the groups that we're part of, and our engagement on those just completely soars. And we see a really high value in doing that because it also gets people to come into our community. We collect their data, and now it's a customer that we can start to talk to and hopefully migrate through a workflow that you know, transitions them from a you know, a voyeur, a watcher on the side, versus someone who's actively engaged with and participating with us. Okay, so let's pop over to the next question. I just want to remind everybody that if you have questions as we go, please feel free to chime in. Or if you have an illustration on something that you're doing that we're talking about that you want to share with the group, please also raise your hand or just go ahead and chime in, because we'd love to hear from you too on what is working for your business. Let's see. Oh, so this is clearly something we're all really faced with, but as we're looking at moving back to our live event productions, how are you working toward these experiences and the communication with your customers? And then is there anything kind of top of mind for you that you can share that you think might be workable for our group as well?
Yeah, so we actually have, knock on wood, a live show coming up in November, our Smoky Mountain Gift Show in Tennessee. That'll be our first show that'll go off the ground for us. So the team's been working really hard, and I think one of the key pieces has been working closely with the city, closely with the convention center, and there's a competitor down the street, so we're working closely with them to make sure we're all aligned and make it as easy as possible, but also manage customer expectations coming into it. So I think top of mind for us on that is we want people to feel safe and secure, right? We want them to know we've got things covered, but we want to make it easy and they understand the expectations. So it's kind of a balance, but also we got to bring back the fun. So, you know, people are looking to get back together. Our team, we have key account attendee managers who are talking to customers to understand what they're saying, and so many want to come back together. So we're making sure as we go along the way, we're keeping the pulse on the customer, but also talking about what they can experience on site, balance with the protocols and the safety. So I think those would be the big things. And honestly, it's working with our partners too to learn and say, what have you tried? What are you hearing? What do we do next? It's a lot of, I think it's gonna be a lot of iteration, but the closer we keep our pulse on the customer piece, I think that's where the heart of all this needs to anchor from, because if they don't feel like they're safe or able to come, it doesn't really matter if we have the show.
Right. And I would imagine too, like, you know, so many of us, you know, we have to look at segmentation of our audience. And so if you have a percentage of your community that is saying, yes, we're ready, we're coming, we feel safe, there's one level of communication that's happening with them.
Mm-hmm.
Individuals who may be more hesitant, or individuals who say, I'm not coming back. So, you know, is there anything that you can share maybe about the strategy that you're taking with voice and how you're talking to the different comfort levels of the audience as they look to migrate back to our live events?
Yeah, so part of the piece with having the key account team talking to customers is we can actually flag who's sort of falling into what buckets, or see from how they're responding to our emails. So folks who aren't quite ready to come back, we're also thinking about how do we continue to extend the community online. So there could be content that we're sharing. There could be new product releases and demos that we're doing with exhibitors that we can share. And part of it could be pre-show that we're thinking about. And then we're also doing some meetings post-show. So we have some of our larger customers who aren't able to travel because their travel restrictions corporately have not been lifted. In that case, we're talking about, if you have a need today, how do we help facilitate it? We'll hold Zoom meetings with those vendors at the show. We'll go around the schedule. So I think for us, it's about, you're right, it's about putting folks into the right bucket to communicate to, but also think about how do we go the extra step? Because we know there's an opportunity to do it and to do it well. And quite frankly, our teams need to build that trust and customers need to feel connected. So we're trying to be as ebb and flow with it as we can.
Yeah. Randall, I saw a comment come in on the chat. Do you want to go ahead and just kind of share with the group what you're your sentiment from your shows?
Yeah, we do a trade show and conference for the trade show industry, and we have conducted 3 research initiatives since the COVID hell all began. And our audience are corporate exhibitors who exhibit in trade shows across the globe. So I just wanted to share that we've got 81% of our respondents are still working from home, and that not only will their employers not let them come into the office, they've also 85% of them have corporate travel bans. So as you see a lot of these trade shows that are postponing and going to Q3, Q4 of 2021, many times you hear the dialogue that our exhibitors won't be able to exhibit. And part of that is this liability risk that we've talked about in so many of these different breakout groups, that corporate, if you're in healthcare, one of our advisory boards met this week, and if they're in healthcare or in tech, they're for sure banned for any travel all the way until probably June or July of 2021.
Yeah.
So, you know, back to what Liz said about people want to come, but if they can't come, having the meeting is moot. And so I just wanted to share some of that statistics. There's a white paper that is available for free on our website if people are interested in downloading 40-some pages of results on what people think about our virtual working forum, how is virtual working for them, where is it falling short, what are their CEOs think about face-to-face marketing being missing in the sales and marketing mix. It really is like so many of these groups, we're trying to share what each of us know so that we can all get smarter together with the rising tide, raising all of our ships, right? So we're going to do another follow-up study here in November. And Kathy Breeden and I from SEER we're doing a presentation next week with the venue managers, just trying to understand and share what the research is that SEER is doing and what Exhibitor Media Group is doing. So anyway, that's a quick background.
Yeah, thank you. Randy, do you mind providing a link in the chat?
I'll post it in the chat.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, and I think that, you know, I think that one of the things that you're talking about is actually, you know, we kind of get back to what your community needs, you know, as producers. The thought leadership is important, and the sense of, you know, where are we with the recovery? So in so many instances with a lot of our shows, that really is kind of in a lot of ways the service that we have to provide right now is this, you know, what is the roadmap forward, and taking a leadership position and helping to kind of pencil, you know, really work with the industry to pencil that out. You know, and in some cases, I know a lot of organizers are very involved in part of, you know, lobbying and legislative efforts, and that contributes to how they engage with and talk to their community as well. So thanks for providing that, Randy. I appreciate it. You know, actually, this is also a good segue to our next question, which is with regards to workforce and keeping teams engaged through the pandemic, especially when you're working oftentimes remotely from everyone. So Liz, I'd like to kind of bring it back to you to maybe talk about, you know, how you're working with your teams, how you're keeping them motivated. You know, any thoughts about, you know, the maybe the skill set also that you have as a marketer, you know, as you look at your teams, how maybe they've adjusted to working remotely. I think that those would be all really great insights.
Yeah, and I think the people piece was probably one of the most challenging at first, because it was like, okay, we're going to have a show. Oh, okay, we're not. Oh, and like the change, I think, finally got to a point where we had to say, okay, we're really good at delivering that. That's our promise. Now, what do we do next if we don't have a live show? So there's a couple of things we've done. One is we've gotten more cross-company collective conversations and brainstorms going, because there's so many folks who've got really good ideas. It was the first time we actually had a pause where we could take the time, we could spend more time with our employees and hear more what was going on. we've done a couple of fun things too. So as silly as it sounds, we've done this zombie step challenge where we made different teams across the business and we paired people up in different offices who wouldn't work together. And we had to fight off zombies, and teams had to have so many steps over a course of 6 weeks to win. Honestly, it's probably making all of us walk 20 or 30% more each day and get some exercise, but there's some laughs and camaraderie along the way, and quite a lot of competition, I will say, too, with this group. So I think that's been a good thing. The other thing we're doing is just more often one-on-one check-ins. It's not getting right to the work. It's, how's it going? Like, what's going on with you today? How are things at home? How are the kids? Like, it's a personal check-in, because I think every day can be a little different. You know, being a mom of 2 middle school boys at home every day is like, whoa. So, you know, I think that's an important piece of it too. And in the skill set, we took the time to invest in training. So we bought some seats in a program called Coursera, which is an online training program. So we've been able to do training in different elements for different key folks in our business. We've sent a whole bunch of our folks to SAM sessions, which have been tremendous. So they're learning more as they go. And I think it's about the conversation, the training, making sure people's skill sets not only feel up to date with where we're headed, but they feel empowered to continue to progress those and having the time to do so. I think that's been a key piece. We've also brought in some new folks to the business with different skill sets, because I think this also made us stop to say, you know what, the world of how we do stuff is changing. Technology, data, analytics is so important, and we realized we had some gaps today. So we're working to bring more folks like that to our table so we can learn more and grow faster with that.
Yeah, it's you know, it's interesting too when you look at you know, I think that for a lot of small organizers, there has been you know, some who have been successful at being able to hold on to their teams, and a lot of our colleagues among us have had to have pretty large reductions in workforce. And so what that has meant also is that the skills that they once had and the human capital that they had access to has changed. So for us, interestingly, our team really had to, in some ways, adopt a new skill set with respect to our new digital capabilities. Because we do most of everything in-house, you know, our team, we really had to work very closely with them to, you know, get up to speed on new technology and a new way of talking to our customers and engaging with them. And so for us, what was once a job description has now changed. And I think that's kind of my point when we look at our labor and our team. And to their credit, you know, they have just completely risen to the challenge. We've got an amazing a team here where it doesn't matter if it was part of their purview before. It's definitely what they're happy to take on because they know it's for the good of what's to come next. So I think it's an important piece though. And in particular, when we're looking at contractors, you know, we're not here to necessarily have that discussion today, but I'm in California. And so as a producer in California, it also does make it very, very challenging with the laws here to pull in freelance labor to help assist, you know, with special projects. So for us, finding good vendors also has been really, really key. Do you, Liz, as a question too, when you're looking at your marketing services, do you have contractor vendors that you're working with at this point, or is a lot of your marketing services just done completely in-house?
So most are done in-house. We have had a reduction as well, so folks are wearing multiple hats. We are also relying more on our partners to help guide us. And we're just saying, look, you guys are the experts. What are you hearing? Where do we go? And, you know, I think a big thing is as folks do wear multiple hats, as digital becomes very fast-paced and busy, we also have to be okay to say, you know what, we actually can't do that. That's a great, because we can't be too taxing where we're just churning and burning. We have to be really focused. So we've also worked to say, let's have a strategy. Let's have a big, 1, 2, 3 items we focus on. If it falls outside that, that's okay, but we're not able to do it right now. So having some discipline around that has been key too. But same with your team, Michelle. Our guys have risen to the occasion. They're excited to contribute in new ways, and they're excited to learn new skill sets as well.
Yeah. Let's see. So leading into our next question, I was looking to make sure I wasn't ignoring any hands raised here. We also kind of talked, and we've been touching on this a little bit as we go, Liz, but I wanted to maybe just kind of bring the discussion back specifically to some of the nuance for the smaller organizer and the SIG that we're all part of. Do you have advice to smaller producers who may again be dealing with much smaller resources from staffing and financial capital? Is there something that you feel like you're doing at Clarion that with a skilled approach would work really well for the smaller producer to be able to go do today?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, for all of us, it's about who are we partnering with. There are so many other folks out there who run adjacent to us or maybe have synergies that we could do more together. So we're having those kind of conversations because together we're finding we can develop greater or deeper content or bigger pools of customers to reach if we partner together. I think that's a definite win across the board. I think the other thing I would say is really get focused. We don't have to do everything, but if you know what that customer need is and make that the priority, you've got a great path towards success. And then work with your customers to continue to iterate the process as you go. And we've done a lot of that, from the content we're producing in thought leadership episodes to our online product demonstrations, and we've even launched some membership as well. But it's always about, do we have the customer voice and knowing what they care about and how we can do that, I think the better.
Yeah. One of the things for us that we found is because there has been, a constriction of expenses related to live. And of course, we're all trying to capture some of those dollars back into our digital platforms and working with our community to do that. I am finding that in our market, at least, that our print partners are starting to do quite well, where before they may have been struggling a little bit. They're, at least in our market, is they're now leveraging their print platforms and they're combining it with digital opportunities. So what we did is really worked very closely with print partners in our space to be a valued partner and resource for them for their digital content. So for us, rather than it being competitive, where now they are doing it on their own, they found great value in teaming up with us. So that way we're actually, in some cases sharing revenues, where they're having some opportunity to have increased print capabilities, and we're getting a pass through into some of our digital that maybe our team wasn't accessing before. So I think that idea of partnership and the idea of looking at your base to see who might be doing something where there are some synergies can also really help grow community and aid with our, with your marketing campaign. So I want to open it up. We've got maybe about 10 more minutes. I don't know if anybody has any comments or questions, but go ahead. Let's not go, don't worry about raised hands. Let's just go ahead and jump in and chat. So if you're on mute, just go ahead and unmute yourself. Let's start. I see Tony raised his hand. Tony, go ahead.
Yeah. So Tony Shaw with Dataversity. We have obviously canceled everything this year, and our next event is in April. So April is in that weird time frame that's highly uncertain. It might take place. I mean, you folks know all the issues. I'm just wondering if anybody else has promoted the idea that we're going to try and run this event. It might take place. It might not. If it doesn't take place, then we'll go all digital. And if it does take place, then we'll do in person and digital. We'll do a hybrid event. Because right now that's the position we're in, and we're kind of trying to figure out what the marketing messages should be. So far, we've just been very transparent with people and saying, look, we don't know if it's going to take place or not, but you know, we're going to proceed as if it is, and if it doesn't, then we'll go digital. But I'm wondering if anybody else has had any experience in doing this and found the right type of messaging.
Tony, this is Randy. SHOT Show has been living this same nightmare for January, right? They just had Danica Dermelin just did an article in Convene that posted on social yesterday that addresses really what you're living the nightmare. My event has been postponed for a year and it's supposed to happen in March. We're having the same nightmare that you're living right now. How you tell people what you can tell them, but it's a giant world of unknown. And in Jeff Pressman, in part of the interview, they talk about the Nevada guidelines and saying you're trying to give people data to the decisions that factors that are driving into your decision. I thought they've done a nice job of disseminating the status of where the SHOT Show has to be. And I think the key is you guys, Liz and Michelle, have been talking about it, is gauging the reaction of the stakeholders, making sure that you've got advisory boards of all of the different stakeholders in your community and what's their reaction. I have a handful of CEOs on the exhibitor side that I run these communications by. And then on the other end of the bell curve, I have 7 haters that no matter what I say, they're going to go all over social and say I'm the biggest jackass on the planet Earth. And, you're not going to please even most of the people, much less all of them. So anyway, that's my babble about your question.
Thanks.
Yeah. Joel, did you have something you wanted to jump in with?
Yeah, sure. It's just more of a financial question than anything else for Liz. Liz, good to see you. How you doing?
Thanks.
You mentioned you're doing a show in November, which is incredible. Good luck with that. But I'm sure the majority of your shows that are like in Q1, Q2 are still obviously, up in the air and wondering if they're going to happen just like the rest of us. I'm wondering from a marketing point of view, when normally around this time for a Q1 on a March, April, May show, you're probably starting to spend some money on marketing, right? You're acquiring lists, you're placing ads, you're making commitments, right? Is Clarion across the board, are you sort of, because of the unknown, holding off on any marketing expenditures now because you don't know if you're going to have a show, or are you sort of full steam ahead, or cautiously, or somewhere in the middle? Because for me, I mean, we're not going to spend a penny until we have like a 90% confidence level that a show is going to happen next year.
Yeah, I think, Joel, that's where we are too, is we're finding the ways to connect the community in a way that doesn't cost us money.
Right.
And pivoting more towards, we don't want to spend anything or commit until we know we need to, and it will go on. In all the markets we have, we do have a digital or virtual component right now, which has been a way for us to keep conversation going, to keep the brands out there. And we do a lot with email and a lot with social and phone calls. So we're in the same boat, just because we can't afford to spend it because we don't know what will happen. And if we have to move it down the road, we need that money for down the road when the show could happen.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, no, it's good to hear, because that's same as us.
Even SHOT Show just opened their registration just this last week.
Yeah.
So even though they knew they were wanting to roll forward, they held off too. So IAEE held off way longer with opening registration than they normally would. The Experiential Designers and Producers Conference is the first week of December in San Antonio. They held off all their registration until really late in the sequence. Bottom line is no one can answer the question, can I even go? So they're not going to make a commitment until probably less than 30 days out, when it feels like maybe it can actually happen. So we're doing the same thing. We're holding on all expenses.
Yeah, and for us too, our for show right now isn't until July. We've pushed back to July, but you know, we're questioning the viability of that and whether or not our industry, even if we functionally can have our show, we're questioning whether or not our industry will be recovered enough to actually pay our registration fees and attend. So we're normally right now, you know, we're not launching our consumer marketing. You know, we're a couple months away from where we would be launching on that. We're typically at this point really aggressively going after our content strategies and really starting to build our presenters and our panelists and engaging with them. And so the timelines have all changed for everyone, you know, and it's challenging when we look at what we're going to spend and when it starts, because you don't know if you're putting things into the ether that even will hit.
One thing to add to what you're saying too is we're using the time to say, is our data healthy? Because for so many folks that we're seeing as emails bounce, they're furloughed, what have you, we're actually having our team actually manually update those, because when we do come back, if we don't have that list in good and working order, gosh, it's going to be really hard to reach out and get folks to make a commitment.
So we're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario, and we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago in my group, and we did go out with proposed dates for 2021, but with the caveat saying these might change, and we have our first event is not until April, but then we have like 4 in June. So we did say these are the proposed dates. If we have to change them, we will. That might mean that we might have, like we have cybersecurity events. We have 2 of them, one spring, one fall. We might have 2 in the fall, one east, one west, which we usually don't do. We sometimes bring West Coast people to the east. It depends because it's all enterprise level. So we're just getting that message out there to them that these are the events. Please put us in your budget, please. But yeah, we're not spending a nickel either on any other type of marketing.
Yeah.
You don't have to, Randy, just jump in.
I think one of the things that I'm curious about what the audience, we've had great success with direct mail in the last 5 years. I mean, open rates in emails keep falling. Social is what social is, but we've had huge success in direct mail. And right now, back to my metric that 81% of our corporate exhibitors are working from home. We don't have their home address. It's just, I mean, even major corporations that have made the decision, Bank of America had, I think, almost 50 corporate exhibit and event managers that were subscribers to our magazine, and corporate sent a note and said, we are no longer going to accept print. It's not going to come. It's going to get thrown away. Stop mailing anything to our people because they're working from home. That's going to screw us and make it really hard to reach some of the people. What are some of the others on the call experiencing in that world?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in really quickly because this is a huge, huge challenge, and it's not just, I mean, it's everyone. In our particular case, on the consumer side, that's not the issue. We have home addresses on our consumer platform, but on our B2B platforms, everyone's addresses are tied to restaurants. And not only are they not there right now, they may be not there, you know, when furloughs are over. So we've actually been launching into a campaign to get them to update their addresses. And so, you know, one thing that you may want to look at is some kind of incentive or offer for them to be able to manually provide you with their home address. We're finding some success with it. And so it's at least helping us get better connected with those individuals. You know, but it's a huge challenge. Liz, what about you guys?
Yeah, I think we've been doing a lot of that as well. So we've been putting what we call conditional forms on our website. So folks are able, whatever we have information on them, they can ask the next question. So we've been capturing it that way as well. We've been doing really a lot more with email and social though. So as folks are going into our platforms, we're capturing more live information. So wherever you've got some sort of digital means, capture it, and then you can compare to what you have as well. Because I think we're starting to watch more on not only how many people we have, but are they active or not? And active or not is sort of the trigger to say, gosh, this actually is who we're going to be able to live market to as we go forward.
Great. Anyone else have a strategy that's working well for them? Joel, is your hand raised intentionally, or have you not lowered it? Okay.
Me? No, I'm good. No, I don't mail anything.
No, Joel, I wanted to make sure.
Joel.
Yeah, he had his hand raised. Sorry about that. Okay. You're
on
muted.
mute. Forgot to put it down. Now it's down.
Okay, no problem. All right,
Good that
everyone.
you were all in the same boat.
Yeah, truly. Well, we'll write just before the 9 o'clock hour, at least out for me here in San Diego. So I want to go ahead and wrap up, and I wanted to thank you all for being with us. Liz, thanks for giving us an hour of your morning, and Phil for your leadership with the SIG and helping to put all of these discussions together. Anna, thank you for organizing. You're staying behind the scenes, but we are so grateful for everything that you do for CISO and for us organizers. I want to make sure that you put on your radar our next SIG discussion for our small business roundtable is restarting events after COVID-19. That will be on October 27th at 8 a.m. Pacific. So make sure you register for that. And we'll see you back here in a week. So thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you.